The Office 2005 to 2013 is without a doubt one of the most beloved TV shows of all time. Airing in a year I forget, this mockumentary fused the lighthearted genre of sitcoms with dumb baby emotions. Many fell in love with the antics of a relatably incompetent boss and the engaging roller coaster of a blossoming, forbidden romance. But as a big, burly man, and, more importantly, a sociopath incapable of empathy, I feel the same way. However, in this concoction of comedy and heart-wrenching drama, at least I assume it's heart-wrenching, the thing that elevated the show from generic sitcom to legendary comedy that people will not shut the frick up about, especially YouTubers, was these two. From the little wholesome moments to the emotional climaxes, that's what she said. From the agonizing heartache to the unreal payoff, that's again what she said. Jimala and Pamothy are considered by some of the world's quirkiest individuals to be the ideal couple, the couple that they yearn to be a part of. But what is overshadowed by their love is the tragedy of knowing that the person you're in love with is in love with someone else. That no matter how much you try to move on, you can't escape those lonely nights spent dreaming about the one you truly love. And as the years pass, you still find yourself fantasizing about being together with this incredible person. So many people glorify the suffering of unrequited love and see this at times toxic relationship as something to strive for. In fact, many of the couples in The Office 2005 to 2013 have unhealthy traits that you may encounter IRL. Now, I know exactly what you're all thinking. How can this goofy comedy show with tomfoolery aplenty teach me valuable life lessons that I can apply in my everyday life? And if you weren't thinking that, I would reconsider. Let me see. Alright, you get to live another day. Bucko. The relationship between Jimbo and Pammy can be separated into 4 distinct eras. Will They Won't They, Will They Won't They, Part 2, They Did, and Will They Won't They, Divorce Edition. We are introduced to these two lovebirds in, surprisingly, the first episode of the first season. They josh around, then, chatting about her life goals, Pam says,
I like to do illustrations. Mostly watercolor, a few oil pencil. Jim thinks they're good.
And we can glean from her reaction to the Jell-O stapler,
You put my stuff in Jell-O again!
they are, at least, very close friends. Immediately, we, the audience, want these two to bang. That's what I wanted, at least. And look, he's asking her out.
Do you like going out at the end of the week for a drink?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why we're all going out, so that we can have an end of the week drink.
Surely this will lead to them having a good who the freak is that?
Roy's my fiance. We've been engaged about 3 years.
Judging by the way Jim jolted back, we can tell he is uncomfortable around Pam's fiancé. And we all know there's only one reason you'd be uncomfortable around a friend's partner. You want to perform coitus on their beloved. From this not-so-subtle gesture, we know that Jim is into Pam, but we don't know if that feeling is liberty mutual. But Roy must be a great guy and lover to outcompete lanky old Jimbo over here. Well, in the extended cut of the episode, let's hear it in Pam's own words.
I love Roy because I know I love him because of how much my family loves him.
To give some advice to the Pams of the world, if you can't put into words why you love your BF/GF/F/S, that's probably not so good. And for the Jims of the world, as we'll see, if your crush has a shifty BF/GF/F/S, don't get your hopes up. Jumping right into the next episode, we'll see just how much Jim loves Pam. 20-minute episode short, Jimothy loses a quarter of his yearly commission when Dwight pilfers his client. While this would send most into a Killdozer-esque rage, after Pam rests her head on his shoulder during a meeting, Jimmy has this to say.
Not a bad day.
Aw, isn't that so cute? Moving on. While episode 4, The Alliance, is probably the best example of Jim and Pam's chemistry, episode 5, Basketball, perfectly shows the love triangle between Jim, Pam, and Roy. We can see PB and J lightheartedly trash-talking, a wholesome conversation that leaves both of them grinning ear to ear. Contrast that with the joke Roy cracks.
Don't listen to him, Pam. Trust me. Tip it my way, you're sleeping in the car.
If you look very closely, this is the face of a joke not landing. These may be two teensy examples, but it encapsulates how Jim makes her feel and how Roy makes her feel throughout the first 2 seasons. When Roy scores, we can witness Pam half-heartedly clapping with a blank expression. However, when Jimbo scores, she lets out a and smiles genuinely. Listen, I don't mean to over-exaggerate, but if a girl espouses a at you, hooey, she is as good as sprayed, my feller. And when Jim commits another ball in net, Pam starts checking him out like he's a piece of meat. Women are vile creatures, bro. Not much happens after that, just Roy assaulting Jim and then whining about getting owned. This episode is really emblematic of Roy's deadbeat boyfriend personality, and only leads us to scratch our heads as to why she stays in this relationship. Regardless, Pam and Roy walk out together, where she says,
Yeah, let's get you into a tub.
Yeah, let's get you in a tub.
Jim's reaction may last just a few brief seconds, but it expresses years of the pain wrought from being in love with someone that is in love with someone else lamau. This is definitely a feeling that most of us know very well, and that might play into why this relationship resonates with as many people as it does. The next episode is aptly titled Hot Girl, which obviously features horny men. Amy Adams, a purse saleswoman, sales her purses in The Office 2005 to 2013. The love triangle is having their lunch break when Roy brings up the titular hot girl, asking Jimmy,
What do you think about that little purse girl, huh?
Sure, yeah.
Why don't you get on that?
It's not really my type.
Clearly he has zero interest in Amy. Keep that in your little nog for a sec. Roy, like the doting fiancé he is, declares,
Man, I would be all over that if I wasn't dating Pam.
We're not dating, we're engaged.
Engaged, yeah.
Take notes, ladies and gents. Roy is a great role model for those aspiring to die alone. Following this interaction, Jimothy states,
I'm sort of Pam's go-to guy for her problems. You know, with stuff like work, or her fiancé Roy, or, no, those are pretty much her only 2 problems.
But, again, like the gallant charmer he is, Roy goes to cheer up Pamela by sincerely expressing his regret for what he done said, with a heartfelt apology. Just kidding, he just tickles her and she forgives him. This knuckle scraper didn't even espouse so much as a half-assed sorry. Roy is given the easiest layup on earth, but instead he researched basketball terms for fucking up. As you most certainly remember, because I told you to, Jim expressed his lack of interest in Amy Adams, but there he goes flirting with her. This becomes a recurring theme throughout this love affair and the show at large. Jim attempts to escape his romantic woes by pursuing a relationship, fully knowing that the person will not fill that void in his life. He is so emotionally attached to Pam, putting so much thought and love into this relationship while getting nothing in return. This right here is a real phenomenon known as codependency. To grossly simplify, a codependent relationship is when one or both parties are emotionally reliant on the other in a way that is not reciprocated. Usually, this is discussed as a form of abuse, where one person is intentionally exploiting this emotional attachment, but I feel this concept can be helpful in scenarios like this, where the so-called taker has no idea that they're taking. Which may seem ludicrous, but when you've been pegged as much as I have, Jimbo sinks so much energy into thinking about being together with Pam, jesting with her and helping her through her relationship problems, only for her to go home to her fiancé. A little earlier, Pam says this about Jim.
Jim's a great guy. He's like a brother to me. We're like best friends in the office, and I really hope he finds someone.
So, obviously, when she asks,
So you got big plans this weekend?
Well, I think I'm gonna see Katie.
she is happy. But, wait a minute, is she applying lipstick? We can tell due to this minuscule clue and the totality of the evidence using red yarn and a corkboard. Who am I kidding? If you've watched the show, you know Pam is into Jim at this point. So, what gives? Pam is in a relationship with a guy who is frankly kind of a douche, and she has feelings for a guy who is the polar opposite. Well, it's important to figure out what it means to have feelings for someone. Having feelings could mean that if Roy perished in a tragic Baylor accident, maybe she'd go out on a date with Jim and just see where it goes. Or it could mean that Pam would call off her wedding for the guy. But at this point in the show, we can't really tell. I'd like to take this intermission to introduce a new segment. I will be reading and responding to your comments and questions from the previous video. Naturally, I will name this segment Reading and Responding to Your Bitch Asses. Very Valid 796, counting is hard but close, commented, "Is this a repost channel? Cause if not, why does this not have more engagement? W content, keep it up." What's something badass to say? I don't make copies most of the time. I make originals. When I don't want to steal jokes from the show that this video is about. But thank you. I appreciate the kind words, Vivi. Only one comment? Come on, viewers, pick up the slack. Comment something epic in the comment section down below if you want your comment read in my next video. Season 1 introduces us to this all too familiar dynamic, but Season 2 gives us much more insight into what to do if you find yourself in a Jimala and Pamothy-esque relationship, as well as what not to do. Season 2 starts off with a bang, giving us a taste of the renowned Dundies Awards. Upon learning his dinner would not be paid for, Roy decides to skedaddle, but Pam is chagrined that he didn't even ask her what she wanted to do. The two get into a brief spat before Pammy returns just in time to see a very racially sensitive impression, which this lady just finds hilarious, judging by the look on her face that most women give me anytime I make a joke. Clearly bereaved after her altercation with her caring fiancé, Pam says,
Can I get a drink?
"Now, I don't know a lot about this life, but using alcohol to suppress the bad emotions has never steered me wrong. Besides, the incident." A few dozen beverages later, after graciously accepting her Dundee, Pammy embraces Jimmy for a wholesome ho. Whoa there. They share their first kiss. You can hear the live studio audience in my room just eating it up. But Pam is drunk, so this might not mean anything. I mean, we'll never know if Pam was just a little buzzed, but she knew what she was doing.
I was a little buzzed, but I knew what I was doing.
After nearly snapping her neck and getting a lifetime ban from Chili's, Jim waits with Pam while Angela comes to pick her up. Before entering the vehicle, we have this little exchange.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
This is it, the moment we've all been waiting for.
I just wanted to say thanks.
Mother. It's pretty apparent that she was gonna ask if Jim wanted to bang, or, more unlikely, if Jimmy had feelings for her. But she wussed out of asking because of the cameras. If Pammy had just admitted her feelings here, it would save them 2 seasons of heartache. Hopping on over to episode 4, The Fire, Amy Adams calls Jim while he's at work, leading Pam to say,
Katie and Jim met in the office, and now I guess they're like going out or dating or something. You know, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking really loud. Am I talking really loud?
That response, alongside the kiss at the Dundies, makes this seem like less of a tragic Baylor accident situation, and more like Pam has calling off her wedding kind of feelings for Jimothy. However, at this point in the show, she still doesn't know if he has the same feelings for her, so it makes sense as to why she stays with Roy. Amy Adams stops by while The Office 2005 to 2013 is playing desert island movies. She joins in and says she'd bring Legally Blonde, leading Pammy to giggle profusely. Because earlier in the episode, Jimalo was ragging on Meredith for saying the very same movie. This leads Pam to realize that Amy Adams is not a good match for Jimbo, thus, she doesn't need to be jealous of her. Jim and AA decide to go off to lunch, where he then sees Pam smooch Roy, leading him to frown. He tries to distract himself with a girl he knows could never live up to the one he loves most. This leads us to our first lesson. Escapism is a common coping strategy for most people, but it should never be conflated with moving on. To distinguish the two, escapism is a temporary distraction used to make yourself feel better without addressing the stressor. Moving on, however, means relinquishing the emotions tied to the stressor, or permanently cutting contact with it if you can't let go of those feelings. I will get into how you can apply that in your everyday life a bit later, but for now we need to acknowledge that banging Amy Adams is not moving on. But if it's not, then I don't want to move on. Nothing really happens in episode 7, The Client, except Jimala and Pamothy have a cute date on the roof. Aw, I ain't here for romance. This video is about sorrow and rejection. Moving on to the Christmas episode. Merry Christmas, everyone. Jimmy gets Pammy for Secret Santa. So he decides to get her a teapot that she really wanted, adding in some mementos and inside jokes, and a note where he confesses his feelings for her. His plan goes awry when Michael pulls some classic Michael Shan hooligans, deciding to turn Secret Santa into Yankee Swap.
What is Yankee Swap?
One person chooses a gift. The next person can either choose a gift or steal that person's gift.
I thought that was called Nasty Christmas.
Yeah, we call it white elephant.
This leads to all sorts of hijinks.
That was meant for Kelly.
Yeah, I figured.
But more importantly, the teapot ends up with Dwight, and Pam gets the crown jewel that is the iPod. Dwight is unwilling to give up the teapot, and Pam is obviously content with the prehistoric tech. Roy tells her that he was going to get her one of those for Christmas, but now he'll just get her a sweater. Like the doting gentleman he is. Later, in the extended cut of the episode, we can see P and R being all flirtatious, leading us to make a connection as to why Pam stays with the skink. While she may have a more personal and romantic relationship with Jimbo, her chemistry with Roy is completely founded on sexuality. There is nothing intrinsically wrong with this. In fact, many relationships centered around copulation can work. It's just important to recognize that she is not just with this douche for no reason. However, what is the problem is that Pammy is not happy with just the sexy stuff. We can see this immediately. While they're fondling each other, Daryl barges in and starts talking with Roy about fantasy football, leading Pam to rubberneck over at Dwight in the teapot. Clearly seeking that sentimental void in her life, she trades the precious iPod, worth a whopping 15 smackaroos on eBay, for Jimothy's gift. Judging by her reaction, she loves it, saying later,
Yeah, I think I made the right choice.
But at the last second, Jim secretly swipes the card and puts it in his pockets. If he just confessed his feelings here, it would save these two a season and a half of pain. When The Office 2005 to 2013 ventures onto a booze cruise, I forget what the episode is called, Pam and Roy and Jim and Amy Adams hang out, where Roy and Amy Adams bond more with each other, more than either of them ever have with their actual dates. Roy acts like a frat guy, neglecting his babe to down snorkel shots with the boys. This leads Pam to wander outside with Jim. But Jimbo is dejected, clearly unhappy in his relationship with Amy Adams. You know, I would treat her so much better. And Amy, even though you're like 86 years young, I'm still willing if you are. He looks at her, wanting to confess, yet he can't summon the courage. His gawking makes Pam uncomfortable, so she decides to head back inside. If Jimmy had just said what was on his mind, he would have saved these two. You get the picture. At the bar, Captain Jack motivates Jim to express his feelings for Pam. Unfortunately, the Cap also motivates Roy. In a drunken stupor, Roy hobbles on over to the mic and announces,
Pam, I think enough is enough. I think we should set a date for our wedding. June 10th.
Throughout the entire course of the show, this is probably the most romantic thing Roy does. That's right, being wasted off his ass and promising he'd do the thing he promised to do 3 years ago. A dejected Jimothy apathetically breaks up with Amy Adams.
Let's break up.
Whoa, what?
And goes to the now imprisoned Michael to confess his feelings for Pam.
Tell you the truth, I used to have a big thing for Pam. So.
Really?
And Michael actually gives some solid advice.
Well, if you like her so much, don't give up.
She's engaged.
BFD. Engaged ain't married.
It doesn't matter if your crush is single, dating, engaged, or married, there's still a chance that they have the same feelings. And the only way you're going to get an answer is by asking them. I mean, even if they're married, divorce is a thing. That happens to 50% of marriages. Those are odds I would ecstatically bet on, which may just be the reason I am recording this video from a cardboard box. You can suffer through years of not knowing and thinking that maybe there's a chance, or you can take 5 minutes and have an answer. An answer that may break your heart, but an answer that can help you move away from denial and towards acceptance. Chugging along to episode 13, The Secret, Jimbo tries to keep Michael from exposing what he done said on the booze cruise. And Michael does keep that secret. For 13 minutes and 21 seconds.
He is in love with a girl he works with who's engaged, so just cut me some slack, please.
Pam?
Wanting to get ahead of the rumors that are now circulating through the office 2005 to 2013, Jim approaches Pam and lies to her.
I told Michael that I had a crush on you when you first started here.
Oh.
Again, the move is just hanging it all out there, metaphorically speaking. Or literally, if you want to be on a certain registry. Later on, however, Michael tells Pam,
I know that Jim had like a crush on me when he first started, but that was a long time ago, so.
It wasn't that long ago. It was on the booze cruise.
Jim had a crush on me on the booze cruise, or he told you about it on the booze cruise?
So now, Pam knows about the crush. So why doesn't she confess her feelings for Jimbo? Does that poke a hole in my advice that you should express your feelings? Well, as we know, or as I will spoil, Pammy breaks off her engagement for Jimothy. We can then game theorize that Pam would never have said yes to Roy's second proposal had Jim told her how he feels in the card, meaning they would probably already be together by this point. So checkmate. Straw man that I just made up. In episode 15, Boys and Girls, Jennifer tells Pamela about some art courses she could take at corporate in New York. When she tells Jimothy about this opportunity, he is immediately supportive.
Well, what's it all about? I think you should do it. That's great.
Encouraging her to do it without a thought. When she brings it up to Roy, however, we can see Roy isn't as eager to support his fiancé's dreams.
So you're not doing it. Why not?
Roy's right. There's no guarantee it's going to lead to anything anyway.
You gotta take a chance on something sometime, Pam. I mean, do you want to be a receptionist here, always?
Oh, excuse me. I'm fine with my choices.
You are?
Pam shouldn't be bawling her eyes out right now. She should be excited to take an art course that could lead to a career she's actually passionate about. But her partner is unwilling to make the sacrifices that would ultimately make her happy. Relationships are about give and take, and throughout the whole show, Roy has been all take. Valentine's Day rolls around in, surprisingly, episode 16, Valentine's Day. It becomes immediately obvious that Pam is expecting a gift from Roy. However, she gets increasingly agitated when she receives nothing.
Nothing for me?
Join the club.
When the man of the hour walks in, Pammy confronts him.
It's just that I had to sit here all day while Phyllis got like an entire garden delivered to her.
What, you're mad at me?
I mean, I know that we said no big gifts, but I was kind of hoping you'd get me something for Valentine's Day.
You are gonna get the best sex of your life.
This is a terrible move. In my experience, women don't like sex. Like they're severely repulsed by it. But let's shake it up a little and compare this episode to episode 19, Michael's B-Day. Upon learning that Kevin might have skin cancer, the two go out to the supermarket to get him some gifts to cheer him up. This day is filled with cute moments and silly tomfoolery. And at the end of the day, Pam has this to espouse.
Michael's birthday was actually pretty cool. It was a good day. I don't know. It was a good day.
Roy can't even manage to make Pammy crack a smile on the most romantic day of the year, but Jimbo turns a mundane workday into something that leaves her giddy with excitement. Despite her problems with him, Roy and Pamela clearly love each other, but now there's no denying that Jim is the one for her, because it's a television show, written specifically for that reason. There are 4 ways of expressing your love for someone: affection, sexuality, emotionality, and funness, and dating / flowers, and prostate milking. In episode 21, Conflict Resolution, we have this little intercourse.
Look, if she wants an invite, maybe she's just trying to be friends.
Don't take her side.
Well, what does Roy think about everything?
I don't know, I try not to bother him about this kind of stuff.
You mean like your thoughts and feelings?
Yeah.
Gotta hate it when all women want to do is have intercourse. Like, put your clothes back on, let's have a conversation. The reason I mentioned the 4 ways of expressing love was because these are just a few things that people generally need in a relationship in order to feel fulfilled. Like I said before, some can work out with just 1 or 2, but usually it's a triangle. Or a 4-sided triangle. Putting this in terms of Pam and Roy's relationship, he is not sentimental, affectionate, and they joke around maybe once. She would not be happy in this relationship if all she had was the sexuality. But the reason she is happy is because she is getting those other 3 pillars. From Jimbo. She goes to him whenever she has problems, they find each other funny and engaging to talk to, and Jimothy is thoughtful and giving. So what happens when she loses all of that? Well, Jim has lost nearly all hope of being with Pam, so he decides to interview for a job at another branch. Now it's time for the season finale, episode 22, Casino Night. As if Roy wasn't likable enough, the one thing he is tasked with, sifting through wedding bands, is something that Pam has to do for him. Jimbo offers to help, much to her delight. But Jim isn't as enthusiastic.
Why did I talk to Jan about transferring? Well, I have no future here.
After some cute moments of watching bands, and Pam demolishing Jimothy in poker, he talks with Jan about transferring. It's in this conversation that he finally realizes it's time to go all in. It's win or move on. Roy heads home without his fiancée because of course he does, leaving Jim and Pam alone together. Obviously in a good mood, Pammy tries to joke around by ragging on his poker prowess. But Jim knows that he can't push it off anymore.
I'm in love with you.
What?
I'm really sorry if that's weird for you to hear, but I need you to hear it.
Blindsided by his confession, Pam doesn't know how to respond, so she tries to downplay her feelings.
I'm really sorry if you misinterpreted things.
We, as the audience, know that Jim didn't misinterpret anything, as we'll see in the ensuing scene.
No, I didn't know what to say. Yes, I know. I don't know, Mom. He's my best friend. Yeah, he's great.
Pam talks to her mother on the phone, telling her about Jim's confession. She says,
Yeah, I think I am.
to answer a question we cannot hear. However, we can make a little game theory, and I think the only question that makes sense here is, are you in love with him? To which she says, yes. If only Jim was here so she could tell him that. Oh, there he is.
I have to go. I will. Listen, Jim.
And that is the end of the season. What a cliffhanger. Unfortunately, we will have to wait an entire Peacock loading screen to find out how the scene plays out. Alright.
You have no idea how long I wanted to do that.
Me too. Jim.
You really gonna marry him? Okay.
With that, Jim moves to Stanford and attempts to move on, while Pam calls off her wedding after she realizes that she made the wrong choice. Let's dissect this from Jim's perspective and see how you, dear viewer, can best protect yourself from the heartbreak of rejection. Mistake number 1. Falling in love with someone that is already spoken for. Remember the mornings you wake up, immediately looking at your phone just to see that they haven't texted back, and the feeling that makes you want to fall right back asleep so you don't have to feel anymore. Recognize the sadness that builds up anytime you're having a wonderful time with this person until they invoke the name of their partner, or you try your hardest to force a smile when all you want to do is scream. And realize that you don't deserve this. A dumb bick you may be. Sure, you might be a rube, a pinhead even. Mayhaps you don't deserve much. But you deserve more than to be treated like this. You deserve someone that is willing to give you their full, undivided attention. That said, it's easy to look at this love triangle and wonder why on earth Pam chose knuckle-scraping Roy over wholesome, caring, funny, stick-bug-looking Jimbo. It's easy to resent the fact that your crush would choose someone that hasn't watched all 204 episodes of The Office 2005 to 2013 as many times as you have, but if you break it down, it's completely understandable. With Roy, Pam has 9 years of dating and an engagement, a shared apartment and shared car, someone that helps her pay her expenses, and, yes, love. If she were to leave him for Jim, she would have 0 years of dating and no engagement, no apartment, no car, no one to help her with expenses, but true love. Would you feel safer sitting down at a roulette table and throwing down a $1,000 bet, or wagering your entire life savings? Happiness is so much easier to sacrifice when the alternative is risking your stability in life on a gamble that might not work out. The reality is that your crush's partner will always have the upper hand, and you don't need to be slightly better to win, you have to be significantly better. And even then, they will most likely choose the other person anyway. So it is important to realize that if they won't choose you, why in this godforsaken realm should you choose them? Now, if you've already fallen for someone that has themselves a Roy, happens to the best of us, or your Pam is luckily babeless ATM the moment, Jim's mistake number 2. Not expressing his feelings sooner. It's difficult when all you can think about is you and your crush being together, and how happy you two could be. Yet, anytime you try to build up the courage to confess your feelings, suddenly all you can think about is the pain of rejection or the horror of making this person uncomfortable to the point that they might even distance themselves from you. If we look at The Office 2005 to 2013 seasons 1 and 2, it's easy to point out how Jim was rejected when he laid it all on the line. But if he hadn't taken back the card, Pam would have come to the realization that she shouldn't be with Roy before he re-proposed. Obviously, the show is a work of fiction, so let's apply the same principle to the real, plain-our world. Imagine waking up 5 years from now in the exact same place you are now, stuck in a relationship with someone you would give anything to be more than just friends. Because if you don't confess your feelings, regardless of if they feel the same or not, that's exactly where you're gonna be in 2030. Now, would you rather have that, or, in 5 years, wake up next to someone that you love that loves you back? Maybe it's your current crush, or someone you've never even met, because that is absolutely what you will not have if you keep your feelings to yourself. You will just spend the years trying and failing to find someone else, because you've built up this person in your mind so much that nobody can compare. So what you need to do is call that nice lady / gentleman and tell them, I want
to see you naked. Wow, I'm naked.
You stay away from me.
Probably don't use those exact words, but only probably. While there are more mistakes committed by our dearest Jimothy in Season 3, I will address those in a second video. Now let's briefly take a gander at this from Pam's perspective. Mistake 1. Being in a relationship that doesn't make her happy. As I've explained, leaving someone isn't as simple as just saying see ya later toots. There are many practical reasons to stay with a partner that isn't fulfilling you, but the most powerful reasons are often psychological. It's incredibly difficult to spend years of your life with someone, long enough for marriage to become a conversation, only to realize you still don't know if you want to take the next step. The idea of spending the rest of your life with your partner becomes more of a fear than a source of excitement. Yet the prospect of leaving them is even more terrifying, so you're stuck in a limbo where you have no clue as to what to do. Bringing this back to The Office 2005 to 2013, a very clear way to tell that Pam and Roy aren't compatible is their values. She values expressions of love, romance, and humor, while Roy just wants to do shots with the boys. No, but seriously, Roy is more complex than that. He also loves Snatch. Okay, shut up. We see that the things these two value are completely opposite. Now, should you break off things with your boy-girl or friend-friend just because your values aren't aligned? No, but it's important to note that these needs must be reconciled, not ignored. Roy may not be able to grow a sense of humor, but he can become more doting and involved in their relationship, and Pam can part the Red Sea more often. That is a vile thing that I just said. I'm keeping it in. Point is, she can still help meet his needs too. What you should take away is that if the things that you value aren't being tended to properly, you need to have intercourse with your partner about that. If they at least try to be accommodating of your needs, then you know there's still a chance for things to work out. But if they are unwilling or unable to amend this relationship, time to ditch that bitch, honey. I have decided to split this video into 2 parts, and I don't want to hear any lip from you, pal. This video is already approximately 15 times the length of my usual uploads, and part 2 may be even longer. So keep an eye out for my next video, or I will endlessly cuck you every time you fall in love with anyone. Man or woman. Now, if you've watched this far, you must have enjoyed my schizoid ramblings, and, more importantly, you have nothing better to do with your time. If you're viewing this a few weeks after I upload, part 2 will appear right here in a few seconds. But if you're not, skill issue. But also check out my previous video, Insecurity is Ruining Your Life. Are you struggling with self-esteem, loser? Do you find it hard to work up the courage to put yourself out there, dweebus? Do you need to fill your time with endless content so you don't have to confront the dark thoughts? That's unhealthy. But this video may just help you recognize how to break out of that cycle.